Hello, and welcome to Creating Environments that Support Diverse Learners. I'm Allison Schlofelt, the Coordinator of Digital Integration for South Bend Community School Corporation. To begin, we're going to start with some SBCC definitions so we can have some common language going into this training. We're going to start with equity, which Dr. Sutton, our Assistant Superintendent of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, defines as it's about policy and practice, ensuring that everyone receives what they need to be successful, even if that varies across racial or socioeconomic lines. We are also going to define equality as the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, and opportunities. And lastly, we are going to define diversity from the Garden Swartz and Rao article. We are all very familiar with Ms. Rao and her PD that she does for our district. So she defines diversity as it encompasses all aspects of all individuals' identity that makes each unique. It refers to a range of similarities and differences among individuals, including but not limited to gender, culture, physical capacity and cognitive ability, sexual orientation, parental status, educational background, physical appearance, language and accent, geography, religion, and personality type. As you know, SBCSC also has an equity mindset that we focus around all of our professional learning regarding equity and diversity. It begins with the my responsibility, that we hold responsibility for the academic and social emotional success of all students. We focus on ourself. We reflect on our own cultural perspective, beliefs, and biases, and change your practice accordingly. We focus on global context. We challenge powers of privilege and dismantle systems that negatively impact our students, ourselves, and our practice. We have an equity mindset fostered around building relationships. We foster and maintain meaningful relationships with our students and our families. We set high expectations. We maintain these consistent and high academic expectations for all of our students. And within our SBCSC equity mindset, we focus on learning conditions. As a learning facilitator, we co-create a restorative, safe, joyful, rigorous, and personalized learning environment that honors student voice and encourages ownership. So as we go through this learning today, let's keep in mind and keep focused on that equity mindset that we are building and growing as a district. So today we're going to talk about why explore diversity in our virtual courses or in our classes in person as well. And we're going to explore diversity in our courses because it fosters a sense of empathy for others in our students. It also helps our students bring out open-mindedness. It allows students to feel unique while still being a part of a group. It promotes student growth and reflection. And diversity prepares our students for the 21st century workplace. This is our why for today's learning. We're going to focus on communication to begin today. With diversity and equity, as we know, the virtual school and virtual courses communication often occurs in written exchanges, and this can cause for some interpretation of content, especially for our ELL students. They may second guess content or have interpret content a different way. Because it's in written format and they can't necessarily hear the tone or see the facial expressions. The next one is very similar with our communication in virtual and online learning. It's a lot of instructor-initiated feedback, which can, again, it can cause interpretation awareness. Our students may take the feedback in various ways and interpret the tone or the language, the connotation of the words differently because of culture differences and so forth. And then also with our communication at in a virtual classroom, the dynamics of exchanges is something that we should focus on. We should be flexible on how and when our students respond. It could be, again, cultural or our students may just need to respond at a different time than others or complete their work at different times than others. For example, you may see that some students do not do any work on Sundays, that everything is done earlier in the week. And this could be for cultural purposes, religious purposes, um, family reasons, etc. And we just need to be flexible on how we communicate that to our students. So in order to be a better communicator and foster better communication in our virtual and online learning spaces with diversity at the forefront, we need to make sure that we're clear and thorough when we are communicating, as well as providing samples of frequent errors with detailed notes. Whether it's a Google Doc or a Google Sheet or a Google Slide, or even a Google form, whatever it is you are using in your classroom, if you can provide samples of frequent errors with detailed notes about why it's an error, it's going to make those students feel more comfortable at any level. And it's going to allow them to be more confident in their work moving forward. And then, as always, be as clear and thorough as possible with instructions and feedback so that we kind of decrease that interpretation awareness as well. Another tip for better communication is using icebreakers and getting to know you activities in the discussion boards. I use the emoji image because one of my favorites is giving them a list of different things, whether it's your favorite activity or your favorite food or how you feel when you're watching your favorite movie versus how you feel when you're at school or how you feel when you're at the dentist, and they can only use emojis. This is one of my favorites because they don't necessarily need to know the actual term of how they feel, and they don't necessarily have to know how to spell it, etc., things like that. They can simply use this emoji, which is pretty much a universal language at this point. The next is to share expectations for student comments and behaviors in the discussion boards before the course begins. 3, I like to keep it simple. We just want students to participate. We want them to respect that diversity and respect the different cultures that are in our classrooms. And we want to use correct grammar. Another way I like to say this is just the writing style. Make sure you're professional in those comments and the behavior in the discussion boards. We need to respect and value all of our different perspectives and our timing when we submit things, when we reply, etc. So as long as we share those expectations, we will have better communication. And lastly, this is something I recently learned, is that a lot of places are building affinity groups. And these are a group of people linked by a common interest or purpose. So one of our things with our virtual school is that we have students from across the state of Indiana. They may never see each other. They may never see each other or meet in person. So building these groups allows them to build that community. And it may be something where we have someone in the southern part of the state, in the northeast part of the state, and in the center of the state, and they all really like board games. So if we build these affinity groups, then it allows them to build a study group and then, or build a group that gets together on Wednesdays and plays virtual Uno, or whatever the group decides to do. They may also choose to build a study group because they all English is their second language, and they all speak Arabic as their first language. So building that study group, because they are linked by this common interest or purpose, allows them to build confidence, feel more comfortable, and then grow within that online learning environment. These are just some ways to build better communication within our virtual online learning classrooms. Another thing that we should focus on is universal design principles. This allows us to minimize unnecessary physical effort by our students. It also allows the learning space to be accessible to all of our students and providing that support that is necessary. I listed some very basic ways to follow universal design principles. Focus on the color and the size of your fonts. Is it accessible to all students? Pay attention to the amount of material on a page. It's known that if a student or even adults have to scroll more than 3 times, they stop reading. So keep that in mind when you're putting content and material onto a page. Please only use captioned videos. There is so much technology out there, YouTube, etc., that tells us how to caption our videos. Focus on the reading level of the materials. If you have a broad range of reading levels in your classroom, especially ELLs or just lower level reading students, make sure that we're accommodating that and making the reading accessible to them, as well as, does our media reflect diversity? Do we have different genders of writers? Do we have different races of writers? Do we have different cultures of writers? Do we have different socioeconomic characters? Are we mindful of the media that we are using and the diversity seen within it? We are really lucky for the color and the size of the fonts and the captioned videos and the images with alternative text, because Canvas, where we build our courses, gives us that little button that we all know about, that tells us how to change, or what we need to change accessibility wise. But just keeping in mind these universal design principles will put diversity at the forefront of our classrooms. So overall, how do we promote diversity in our classrooms? We talked about the why, and we talked about some ways that diversity is sometimes put towards the back. But how do we promote it? And we promote it with these statements that we strive to understand our students, using those getting to know you activities, not only for ourselves, but to build that community. We utilize different teaching strategies and materials, media that is diverse, teaching strategies that, modeling these different communicative and collaboration strategies. We structure the course to provide equal opportunities to all of our students. Is there time allowed for differentiation, remediation, and acceleration? We celebrate those diversities. We keep this in mind when we're designing discussion posts or sharing articles. Celebrate the diversity, celebrate the cultures that are in your classroom. We encourage differing perspectives. We ask students to share their views and substantiate why they think that way. We provide our students a safe space to share their voice and make their voice heard. And then we seek to include diverse learning materials, which we also talked about above. These are my references for the content today. And you all know that I always have to give aesthetic credits to Slides Mania and Unsplash as well. So thank you very much for attending this learning. And as we continue throughout this upcoming school year, we will be fine-tuning our virtual school courses to focus more and make sure we are being accessible, dive deeper into the universal design principles, and diversify our materials. So we will see you next time. Have a great day.